Alright, this is the factoring by grouping quiz. I'm going to go through it very quickly. We're going to find the greatest common factor between 24 and 8, which is 8. The most u's they have in common is 4 u's, u to the 4th. The most v's they have in common is v to the 7th. And that's everything that is in common. What's left over after I take that out? Well, 24 divided by 8 is 3. U4 divided by U4 is 1. We don't need to write that. V8 divided by V7 is just going to be V to the power of 1, which we don't even need to write the 1 there because everything is to the power of 1, unless otherwise noted. Alright, we do keep that negative sign from the middle right here. That negative sign there is going to stay in the middle. 8 divided by 8 is 1. Again, we don't need to put that. U to the 9th divided by U to the 4th is going to be U to the 5th. V to the 7th divided by C of V to the 7th, 1, don't need to put it, and x cubed was not a common factor at all, so it just remains as x cubed. And that is the factored version of that expression. Let's go to number 2. Okay, on number 2, we're factoring out what's called a common binomial. So that's this u plus 4. It is the same binomial in both. We're going to take it, we're going to put it on the outside. U plus 4 on the outside now, and then whatever's left over, the 7u, and then we keep the positive sign, and the 3 is going to be the answer. That's it. U plus 4 times 7u plus 3. Alright, moving on to number 3. Okay, number 3, we're going to have to group them first. So this is the actual factoring by grouping. We're going to group the first two and the second two, and then we're going to find the greatest common factor of each group. So the greatest common factor of the first group, they don't have a number. They do have u2, or 2 u's being multiplied. Okay. If I take out 2 of those u's, then I'll only have 1 u left. Still have the 5u. Keep the negative sign. Then 7u squared divided by u squared is just 7. Right? In the next one, we can see a common factor between 30 and 42. You don't know your 6 times tables, you might not see it, but it is. Those are both multiples of 6. So at 6, there's no common variable. But I do end up with 5u. Keep the minus sign. 42 divided by 6 is 7. And you will notice again that I have this common binomial, 5u minus 7. We should always get that every time that we are factoring by grouping. So now the 5u minus 7 is going to go on the outside here. We get this u squared. It's going to go right here. And the 6 is going to go right here. We keep the positive, that's the sign of this, right here, positive 6 for the middle of that, and that becomes our answer, 5u minus 7 times u squared plus 6. On to number 4. On number 4, we're going to be factoring by grouping again. Take this group here, and then this group here. In the first group, I only have just a y in common. Take out the y, I'm going to get v plus 7. In this group here, I notice that they're both negative, so I'm going to factor out a negative and 3, because these are both of the y3. So negative 3 is going to be what I factor out. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a positive 1v, and then negative 21 divided by negative 3, positive 7. And again, I know I'm on the right track because I got this common binomial, v plus 7. It's the same in both of them. It gets factored out. It should always be there when you're factoring by grouping. And what's left over is the y and a negative 3. Very important to pay attention to your signs as usual. Alright, let's go for number 5, the last one. Alright, on number 5, we don't have 4 terms, we have 3 terms. So this is a trinomial. 3 terms, 3 numbers. So we have to do a little bit of a different formula here. First, we're going to do whatever the a term is, which is 1 here, times the c term, negative 14. So I got negative 14, and I need to find the 2 numbers here and here that add up to the b term, 5. So what are the factors of negative 14? Well, I've got 1 and 14. One of those would have to be negative 14. And I've got 2 and 7. One of those would have to be negative. And that's about it. I need a positive 5 here. So if I do plus 7 and minus 2, that would add up to 5. And it also multiplies to negative 14. So those are my two numbers, negative 2 and positive 7. Now, if your leading coefficient is just 1, like most of the time it's just 1, then there's kind of a shortcut here. You can just say, okay, this is going to be z, and this is going to be z when I get my final answer, just like the factoring by grouping. I end up with two binomials. And I could just put those numbers in, minus 2 and plus 7. That's a much quicker way of doing it, if your leading coefficient is 1. Now, if your leading coefficient is not 1, it gets more difficult here. If it's not 1, then you have to do the full factor by grouping, where you take these two numbers, negative 2 and positive 7, and you replace this middle term, 5z, with negative 2z and positive 7z. You're just replacing this b, and then we keep the c and the a, z squared, the same. And then we factor by grouping there. You can see the greatest common factor here is z, and I end up with z minus 2. And the greatest common factor here is 7, positive 7, and I end up with z minus 2 again. That gives me that common binomial of z minus 2. And I just pull that out, put it on the outside, z minus 2, and I end up with a z plus 7. That's the longer way of doing it. You can see I get the same answer, z minus 2 times z plus 7. So if you can think of those numbers very quickly when your a value is just 1, this trinomial factoring is quite quick. But that takes time, so make sure to write your work out when you're first starting this process so you can get acclimated to it.